The Premier League's chief of referees, Howard Webb, has explained the decision to overturn Arsenal's penalty at Newcastle at the weekend, saying it was a good use of VAR. But is he right? Referee Jared Gillette had initially given the decision on-field before VAR Darren England recommended an on-field review. Now, this was the incident when Victor Gyökeres touched the ball before Nick Pope, but the goalkeeper got a touch on the ball. So Pope's right leg did make contact with Gyökeres, but crucially, it was ruled that Pope's foot was planted and didn't drive it forward into the striker. The action by Pope was judged to be normal and not foul play. Right, Charlie, when you first saw it, what did you think?
When I first see it, I thought penalty. And then when they flipped it, just see that Nick Pope made the touch, this is getting overturned because it wasn't a penalty. So that's why VAR is used, to show that error was made, no penalty.
Right, so touch the ball, OK.
Before Gyökeres?
No, Gyökeres knocked the ball past him.
And yes, but then before he made contact with Gyökeres, I'm saying.
But the other bit here, interested to see what you think of this. So you've said touch the ball. Again, debatable about whether that was really relevant, but he says the fact that Pope's foot was planted means it isn't a foul because his foot didn't go towards the striker. Well, you can plant your foot down.
Well, I'm not buying into that. I'm not buying into that bit, right? Because it almost seems, Tom, that there's different rules for goalkeepers than what there is outfield players. So I think Howard Webb's just adding fuel to the fire on that side of it. Just saying back the VAR, Darren England, that we made that decision, that wasn't a penalty. And back him up that way. For me, VAR was in the right there. They come in, it wasn't a penalty done. But don't add to it, Pope's foot was planted, it wasn't moving towards it, because that just adds more fuel to the fire.
Well, on that bit then, has Howard Webb put more pressure on referees after that? Because that explanation of the foot being planted, this weekend something will happen.
Oh, you know it will be.
And imagine if it's a yellow card, a second yellow card leads to a red, or a fifth yellow card of the season that leads to a suspension, or something that does actually lead to a penalty, and VAR say, yeah, that is a penalty. Every manager and the player can go back to that and say, but his foot was planted.
But this is what I don't understand. That's what I'm saying. Just adds more fuel to the fire on that scenario, and then opens a big can of worms up for later down the line. Because, as you know, something will happen. It will happen this weekend, won't it? And this will be the conversation going into next. But instead of just saying and coming out, VAR was right into interfering into this decision. They overturned the penalty. It wasn't a penalty. That's it. Was there any need for him to come out and say, Nick Pope's foot was planted? Like I said, this almost feels like there's another rule for goalkeepers. So just park that and just say, VAR, for once, and for why I was a big advocate to have it involved in the game, got it right. And we should be applauding it because they've made the right decision.
I'm going to make the argument that it shouldn't be applauded because do you agree that things should be overturned if they are clear and obvious as the rules state? Should it only be clear and obvious that VAR overturn it?
The worst bit about it is, before I answer that, is there is clear and obvious. That might as well just be wiped out of the way, because we've seen in games gone by that they just get involved at every opportunity.
But you think, should it be clear and obvious, or do you think it should be just get the decision right and take longer?
I'd like them to get it right, but it needs to be quicker, so it has to be clear and obvious. So if I'm saying it needs to be clear and obvious, it should be a penalty. But
because I can tell you that was not a clear and obvious error, and there is absolute proof that's not a clear and obvious error, because I still think that was a penalty. And here we are.
Debating that,
which means it's not clear and obvious.
That's what I'm...
So should they just say, right, OK, I've had a look at it, you've given a penalty, keep the penalty.
But Tom, clear and obvious is not...
Now, this is an attack on Newcastle, by the way, because I think they should have a penalty for a handball as well in that game. This is very much an attack, not an attack, sorry. Criticism of VAR.
But clear and obvious is no longer part of VAR, so I don't know why we're continuous going down that route.
It's supposed to be.
I know it is, but they're supposed to get it right in the VAR. They still make decisions, hence why we're constantly having these conversations about VAR. But in this action, I do believe they got it right. So we need to park the clear and obvious bit, because we're no longer going down that line. Howard Webb needs to come out and say VAR got it right, and don't make up something that, his foot was planted, because that's going to come back and we're going to be talking about this again because something you said. Yeah. Hence why we're always talking about VAR, because something I said many years ago.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, we're still talking about this decision from Sunday on Wednesday. But then again, yeah, good point. We're still talking about that from all those years ago. But it's certainly got people talking. Anyway, Howard Webb has come out and explained and says that VAR and the referee were right.